The Aadhaar initiative and its role in payments and beyond. Our panelists are Dilip Asbe, who's the CEO and CTO of National Payments Corporation of India. Mr. Sudhir Narayan, who's the Deputy Director General of Unique Identification Authority of India, based in Bangalore. Pramod Varma, Dr. Pramod Varma, who is the Chief Architect of UID and has been a serial entrepreneur in the past. Mr. Sunil Kulkarni, who is the CEO of Oxygen, which is a leading retail payments and other retail services company, as well as Srikanth Nadhamuni, who was the director of, or the head of technology of UID AI and is now the managing director of Khosla Labs. I also want to say that it's a great privilege to be able to moderate this panel, not just with the panelists and with the audience, but also we have Mr. Nadhamuni himself, chairman of UID AI, in the audience for a few minutes. So welcome all of you, welcome Nandan, and look forward to an interactive discussion here.
Hi, I'm Srikanth Nadhamuni. I was the head of technology at Aadhaar. Now I run a startup incubator called Khosla Labs.
Great.
Hi, Sunil Kulkarni.
Yes. It's fine, go ahead.
Sunil Kulkarni, Deputy MD, Oxygen. We are a retail and payment solution company.
No, it's not working.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Sunil Kulkarni, Deputy MD, Oxygen. We are a retail payment solution company and also do now our own prepaid mobile wallet using Aadhaar-enabled payment systems.
Great. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to start with a quick show of hands from the audience. How many of you have gone through the Aadhaar enrollment process and on the days as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good. It's almost 60% from what I could guess at, and that's great. As we've seen also online, the numbers now are around 450, 500 million people that are enrolled and other numbers issued.
There are about 55 crores or 550 million people who have already enrolled, and we have also issued about 47.25 Aadhaars so far, as of today.
Okay, and what's the rate at which this is growing?
As of now, we are issuing more than 1 million Aadhaars a day, and we are in the process of ramping up to 1.5 million and 2 million in the next 1 month to 2 months. So that's where we are.
Okay, so that is a phenomenal number, and for you to think about what 1.6 million a day is, by the time I snap my fingers, 25 people have enrolled for an Aadhaar number. So somewhere across the country, right? So you can do the math. I might be off by a multiple of 2, but it's in the same order of magnitude. So and with Aadhaar, we decided the idea of Aadhaar was to provide everybody with an identity, and most countries have gone with a smart card-based identity platform. And issued everybody a smart card. But we did something very different with Aadhaar. And Pramod and Srikanth, you were there right from the beginning. Would love to hear your thoughts on your view of what we have done and why we took such a different approach in India.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to go?
Sure.
I think it was very somewhat adventurous decision, I think. But in the towards the right direction. An online identity being, completely on the cloud, verifiable against an online system. It's a different concept compared to hundreds of years we carrying some identity as a physical manifestation, a card or a paper or something of that sort. So we said, I think the UIDA, the strategy was to say the physical manifestation of the identity can come from our partners if they require. For example, an ATM card is a physical manifestation. A passport is a travel document, or driver's license is a travel document. They're all derived identities in one sense. They derive from Aadhaar, potentially, as a root identity, which is biometric letters, verified online. Issuing a card by itself, I don't think we saw a purpose that you could do everything online. I think it was adventurous, but we are seeing great success, and I think that model is working out very well.
Well, I was going to say, I think the fact that we didn't have a single database in the country and we needed an identity for various delivery of various services.
1 second. Can you all hear Srikanth at the back?
No, you can't hear me. Well,
He doesn't need a mic.
Okay. Well, I'll use the mic. Well, I was saying we had a big problem. We didn't have a single database, but we had a lot of government schemes where people needed their identity to be proved that I'm so and so. Right? When a guy goes, let's say, from Bihar to Delhi, he wants to become a taxi driver or whatever, his card doesn't work, his ration card doesn't work. We had that problem. And we couldn't take existing databases and make it a clean database. So we had to do that. So, of course, we built this system. The way it is quite different from the other systems around the world is, I mean, we studied a lot of systems. For instance, many people know about the social security number in the United States. Some of the concepts are same in that you can use it for various purposes for improving governance and so on and so forth. But where it differs is we use biometrics to ensure that one person has only one UID. Not the same with SSN. You can actually, well, I can predict your SSN number if I knew where you were born. Can't do that with Aadhaar. So, of course, to do that, people like Pramod have done amazing work to architect a system that does 500 trillion biometric matches every day. And he said, you snap your finger, you get 25.
Again, 500 trillion biometric matches a day.
To give out 1 million Aadhaars that Sudhir is talking about, you have to do about 500 trillion biometric matches a day.
At the database count that we have today, at about.
It's being totally controlled at the back. If you can make all the mics on.
Yeah. At the database size that we have today, where we are about 46 crores or 47 crores. So what Srikanth says is right, that we need to do so many matches a day, 500 trillion.
So to wrap up on that question, so I was going to say that between a paper-based ID such as social security number that you see in the United States, between a smart card-based ID that many countries have used with an external credential that everybody has to carry around, we have actually jumped to an online authentication-based ID, a digital ID. So we have actually done a huge leap. And of course, now we have to see the fruits of that labor.
One more comment, if I may. I think the tokenless concept of identity, where your token is not your identity, you are the identity. I think that's the difference between, yesterday I was watching a movie where this guy lost a passport. And he can't prove his identity because he lost a passport. A passport is just a book. Right? That book cannot be your identity. You have to be your identity. So I think this tokenless identity means 500 million people right now are authenticatable without issuing a card, without issuing any token.
Right. So I think just to summarize, I think it's a system which, basically since we had the luxury of architecting it in 2009 onwards, we didn't have to do what the rest of the world had done. We had the opportunity to look de novo. And we needed biometrics because there wasn't enough of a database that was available in order to ensure that people only got one ID at the end of the day. And by going to the tokenless model, we basically said that you are your identity. It's not the document that is your identity, right? And I think the one other thing that I also find very interesting is we really have separated identity from entitlement. Like a driver's license is a permission to drive, or passport is a proof of nationality or citizenship. But here we have said it's all about identity. It does not say anything about am I a good person or a bad person. It just says I am who I claim to be. Now, the ramifications of this, of course, you said, you talked briefly about online authentication, right? Tell us the, idea behind that. And I know you both have, been speaking at several conferences around the world as well. What is the reaction in other parts of the world, especially Silicon Valley, where, I'm sure you've had a lot of interactions with people. Do they see this as, just a different way of doing things, a superior way, a revolutionary way? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it is actually, people are very upbeat about Aadhaar for a few reasons. One is they're actually first stunned at the pace of which the project has taken off. Okay, doing, almost 500 million people within, 3 years since we started enrolling is no jokes. And I know of several countries that are struggling to do much smaller, modest size. So the first reaction is the speed at which we moved. People are astounded. They've always attributed, India can do IT well. There's an IT powerhouse. Okay, that's not a surprise. But I think from a governance perspective, people are sort of surprised at the way in which we have executed it. And of course, Nandan, I hope we'll talk more about that later in the day. So I think that is one aspect that I hear a lot about. Of course, the other aspect which is interesting was biometrics as a sort of form of authentication was not hugely accepted around the world. It was being used in small little pockets. And I think India is sort of is pioneering the use of biometrics, especially iris and so on. So a lot of countries are paying attention to this as a new form of biometric. And, you know, lastly, I think it's just the sheer complexity that people arrive. I spoke in Sydney a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, frankly, you know, we can do Australia at the pace we are going in probably a couple of weeks. And so they're surprised at how we dealt with that diversity.
One comment on the identity itself. It's very interesting, and sometimes you are right place at the right time. It's very interesting that the entire identity verification is going through dramatic change. Number of companies, getting funded in the valley on one ID and, you know, one login, and there's all kinds of identity companies. With iPhone coming up with biometric embedded,
I'll come to that later.
Yeah, but I think what is seeing is like Google predicted death of passwords. You know, it's just things are dramatically changing for identity verification. People are desperately looking at better way to ensure verification is done correctly.
Okay, great. So I'd like to now ask Dilip, right, from the perspective of the banking sector, right? You're the CTO and Chief Operating Officer of National Payments Corporation of India. Actually, would think it would be good if you could just spend 30 seconds on what is NPCI and its role. And then if you could talk about, how does Aadhaar play a role in the area of banking, payments, and, other financial services, and how is NPCI looking to leverage this?
So, NPCI is a interbank clearinghouse. So, we do clearing for all payment instruments in the country. So, be it check, be it ATM card, be it mobile for that matter, be it the ACH, right? So NPCI is doing all the interbank clearing. So what we, what are we doing in terms of processing the number of transactions on a month-on-month basis? So we were checking the run rate. September we were at 300 million transactions, right? So real payment transactions, 300 million transactions we processed. Of course, majority was check and ATM, right? But we expect that now slowly the card and the mobile will take up the good number out of that. So looking at the mobile again, mobile is growing big time now. IMPS again, there are a lot of challenges which you are facing. Again, we'll discuss that during the course of discussion. But we processed 1.2 million transactions in October now as we speak, and about 650 crore rupees, 650 crore remittance is done. So with that run rate, the official figure of Department of Post is roughly around 15 to 20,000 crore a year with 4% commission, right? So we are more or less closer to Department of Post, I can say that, in terms of remittances.
So in terms of Aadhaar,
yeah,
how does it
So with Aadhaar, yeah. So with Aadhaar, we have done now, there were two things which we were trying to do. One is, how the money, the Aadhaar can be taken up as a financial address. So one is how the government can send money to Aadhaar, right? So we went through the entire process of inventing something called Aadhaar Payments Bridge. So which is nothing but banks actually seed the Aadhaar back in their core banking system, which is which has the balances, account number, and all the other customer data. And government actually sends Sanjay's UID number, take your UID number and the amount, and send the file to NPCI. NPCI then figures out, looking at your Aadhaar number and your the money. We look at the mapper, right? Mapper has Sanjay as having an account in State Bank of India. We send that money back to State Bank of India. Now, State Bank of India, basis your Aadhaar number, credits back your account, right? So this is a batch system. We do multiple clearings a day.
So in other words, as a resident, I don't have to tell everybody this is my bank account and IFSC code.
Absolutely. So Aadhaar becomes a financial address. So just to give you numbers, in terms of numbers, we started productionization of this whole Aadhaar payments bridge with the help of government, the oil management companies like HPCL, BPCL, and of course UIDI. We did a productionization in this January, right? And we processed again in October. We are nearing around 7 to 7.5 million transactions a month. We expect to go again to by March 20 to 25 million transactions a month. So that many subsidies or a government benefit transfer is getting back to the the customer's account using the Aadhaar number, right? So that is on Aadhaar, getting a financial address to get money from the government. Now, of course, because IMPS is getting so popular and we wanted to make IMPS simple. So now we want to send money back to you. We require your mobile number, we require your MMID, or we require your IFSC account, or IFSC and account number. So there is a lot of data entry back from a mobile standpoint. So we thought, how do we make it simpler? So we added Aadhaar there, right? So just by taking your Aadhaar and using the same mapper, we can send a real-time credit back to your account, right? Wonderful. So that is also now we have introduced, again, we are in the process of getting all the banks who are there on IMPS getting boarded, right? So that is the second part of it.
So Aadhaar becomes kind of a ubiquitous
financial address from overall perspective. So that is getting the credit back into your account.
Are there any security concerns around this?
Not really, not really. We have been processing now the volumes.
Because you're not taking money out of my account, you're only sending it to my account.
That's correct. So that's, and the volumes are there, so, the volume can speak on its own.
Now, you talked about government payments, right? And we've read about the LPG rebates and so on. But will this be opened up for non-government payments too?
Absolutely.
So if Flipkart wants to do a refund for a return?
Absolutely. So our earlier case was, looking at the government payments, and which will help us to build up that whole mapper database, which is about 32 million in our overall size. Wow. And we expect to get it to about 100 to 150 million in a year's time, right? So once you have a sizable number of 100 million, 150 million, so even a lot of corporates have been asking us, can we do the salary payment? A lot of governments have been asking us, can we do salary payments of their employees using the Aadhaar payments bridge? Right. So as of now, we are very careful in terms of getting the first use case, which is the government payments really successful in terms of getting 20, 25 million. And then we'll open up this back to entire corporate world, including the governments for B2B payments.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is about getting the credit back to the account. Now we have been working extensively with UIDAI in terms of getting this money out of the account using Aadhaar authentication as well. Okay. So 3 years back, 4 years back, you are active in payments, so you would know that the banks used to use the smart cards and the local authentication. So one, it was a huge cost. Second, it was very time consuming, right? And very tedious process to get the card to the user in terms of life cycle management. So then we came up with this whole, with UIDAI, the architecture of micro ATM, right? Using the biometric online authentication, what Pramod was talking about. How person can withdraw money, right? Using online authentication, and he need not carry anything. He can just go back to the business correspondent outlet, punch in his Aadhaar number and give his biometric data. Right, you can withdraw money real time.
So in other words, as long as I have linked my Aadhaar number to my bank account, I can go anywhere and withdraw without just by myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And earlier there was again a lot of resistance from a system standpoint because players were using the legacy technology, and they were the interest was to protect that legacy technology. But now we see lot many people started using this for the financial payments using at the business correspondence, and we have seen now the number has crossed 1 million a month. Now the number of transactions. So we see a lot more traction on this side as well now pick up. Because now once the money starts coming into the account, right, and there would be huge demand from the standpoint of removing that money from the account using Aadhaar as well. Yeah. So that's what more or less from Aadhaar standpoint.
So Pramod, I have a question for you. One is on the payment side, the authorization of transactions, settlement of transactions, which NPCI handles. And traditionally, in financial services world, the banks have been really doing the authentication of the user to enable the transaction. And while we talked about trillions of computes every day for issuance of Aadhaar, that is sort of an offline process. So if a system goes down or what have you, it just delays the issuance by a day, but it's not really preventing me from putting food on the table. Now this gets into a mission critical application here for Aadhaar, the authentication piece. And would like to know sort of, because we have a lot of technologists here building products, and services and trying to decide if they want to use Aadhaar. How can they be confident that, the right platform is in place and, it's not going to break down? And what is your phone number in case it...
For tech support. It's a good question.
And while you're at it, can you also talk about what it takes for people to integrate it into their systems as well?
So I think the backend system itself is, it's a very, very lightweight system. Unlike enrollment, which is a one-time searching you in the database to ensure your duplicate. Authentication is very lightweight, that you're always entering Aadhaar number. So I just need to look up Aadhaar number and your record using your primary key of that database. Now we use, we have completely built on open source. So we use HBase and Hadoop and all that system, good systems to ensure we are spread the data lookup and the entire compute to multiple clusters across multiple data centers. So we have both data center live with at least 2 clusters each in each data center.
I don't understand any
fully load balanced. So, I don't want to go down that path.
No, but I guess the question is...
I think its high availability was extremely critical. I mean, we couldn't go back and ask somebody to withdraw money or do a transaction on that system if the system is not up and running. And our promise is sub-second response. And today we see about 250 milliseconds on an average response time.
No, let me ask a question different. So, Pramod, let's assume that the entire industry wants to use the Aadhaar authentication.
Yeah.
How many transactions in a day you can?
Okay, so we are currently sized to 100 million a day, 100 million transactions a day. We are benchmarked for that. We are sized for it, and it doesn't take more than 30-40 computers. And it's very, very lightweight.
Wonderful.
Okay, I can
wonderful. So, I guess there is plenty of headroom now for all of us to start building our applications here.
Yeah.
Great. So, Dilip, you talked about the ID mapper, right? And I think, Sudhir, as during the enrollment process itself with Aadhaar, you ask for, do you want to open a bank account? I presume that in those cases, it's very straightforward because the bank account is open and the ID is linked. What percentage of people are you finding so far that are opting for, opening a bank account?
See, almost about 40 to 50% people have opted either to open a new bank account using Aadhaar credentials or to link their already existing bank accounts. So thus far, we are in the process of generating records and sending them all to the banks for opening of accounts and linking these account numbers, wherever they have had the accounts. So we have already sent about 40 million data to the banks, and then we have received responses in a large number of cases too. So we've progressed. And then, with the introduction of the E-KYC, also. So the banks otherwise also can use the E-KYC as a model to open new accounts.
Yeah, we'll come to E-KYC in a second, and Sunil is definitely going to show us some exciting things that he's been working on. Just on the ID mapper, Srikanth, since your tenure at UID, after that you've started Khosla Labs, and one of the areas you've been looking at is innovations around Aadhaar, and specifically looking at helping banks to populate their ID mapper. Or the ID mapper. Can you talk about some of those initiatives as well?
Yeah, hello. Yeah. I think the numbers, I was just asking Dilip, what's the number of entries in the ID mapper now? 32 million. So obviously, there is almost 50 crores enrollments and 32 million in the ID mapper. So there is a gap that we have to fill. So we thought about that problem, and I think if various banks and various agencies start doing custom work on doing this mapper, obviously it's going to be harder to do this. And it's also probably going to be confusing for everybody, because I do see my emails that say from ICICI or some Kotak and saying, okay, why did you come to the bank and do this mapping and so on. So we looked at, can we make it simple and elegant in that you can authenticate yourself with Aadhaar on one side to say, I am indeed Srikanth, and I can use my, let's say, a debit card or whatever, and authenticate against the bank and say, yes, I own this debit card and my name is that on the bank, and whatever OTP or whatever the form of authentication with the bank. And then as soon as the same device in front of someone has done both authentications, you can link those two, send it to Dilip, to NPCI, and to the bank, right? So we built a demo. I don't know if you're going to do that today.
We'll have the time for it.
Okay. So, well, if we do, we can show that. But that's something that we have built. But the idea was that all banks and all agencies, if they use a common process using NPCI APIs, then it simplifies the matter, as well as residents understand, okay, it can happen, and even the LPG gas cylinder, maybe guy can come in and do this transaction for me and link my bank account to. So that's something that we tested and we built along with the help of NPCI.
Sure. I just wanted to take a time check. We had 1 hour for the session, right? I think this clock is wrong. Okay, so it's 35 minutes. So we probably can come back and see that demo also, Srikanth. I'd like to move to the next topic, which is an exciting one that you alluded to, which is E-KYC. And E-KYC essentially...
Sanjay, I think one thing we might miss out, I'm not sure how many people are familiar, is that Aadhaar authentication offers in the same API 3 modalities for matching. We might not have talked about it because that's something which, as you integrate, you should keep in mind. One is fingerprint, so any of the fingerprints can be matched. Or now iris is live and people are testing iris authentication, as well as OTP. So Aadhaar as a common platform offers 3 different modalities to ensure one of them really works and it's inclusive in terms of getting everybody to be able to use it.
Great. So actually we'll talk about iris also in a couple of minutes. So in terms of the E-KYC, which is the new thing that has come up, right? So initially we had the enrollment, then we had authentication as a platform, then we had linking Aadhaar number to a bank account so that money can be sent to it, and then using the authentication as a proof of approving a transaction to withdraw cash, right? Yeah. But coming back to the account opening, and Aadhaar is, while we're talking primarily about payments today, it's used for potentially for telecom, for insurance, for mutual funds, potentially even for, proving that I'm Sanjay as I'm applying for a job. Yeah. And so the new capability that was recently announced, which is E-KYC, right? So the way that works is basically, as a user, instead of giving all my data and getting authentication done, I just have to type my Aadhaar number and put a fingerprint, or potentially get an OTP, and all my demographic data is released by UIDAI to the agency. So I could be walking to a bank or a telecom operator, right? Now, initially, Aadhaar, we always talked about only authentication, no data is ever going to be released, but now we're talking about releasing data, right, granted with consumer consent. So where does this come from, and what's the primary problem that we're solving here? And is it a shift in the policy, or is it actually, consistent with what was the original policy? Maybe Sudhir and Pramod, you can talk to this.
One, there's no shift in the policy in that we are not sharing data without residents' consent. Okay. So that stays the same. So here, when a person asks for the E-KYC, when we release residents' demographic data and his photograph, we are seeking residents' consent through the authentication, and once this authentication transaction is a success, we are releasing the data that is related to only the resident for service delivery. Okay. And this is with express consent, and hence there is no deviation from the policy. So we are not compromising either on security or on data sharing or on any other policy guidelines that we had hitherto established. Okay. That is one thing. And when it comes to service delivery, of course, E-KYC definitely, as you said, could be used across multiple platforms. One, to open business bank accounts, to get mobile telephony services, and maybe any other service, and even for seeding, for that matter. If at all, if you would want to verify the kind of seeding that you have done for state service delivery or at the banks, you could always do an E-KYC transaction and establish whether the resident's information that you have seeded is right or wrong with an E-KYC transaction.
Great. So,
on the E-KYC side, I think it's very important to understand that as an individual, today you leave photocopies of your identity proof and address proof self-attested. This is a world we live in today. And it's very common. You walk into a kirana shop, ask for a SIM card, and you're leaving ton of paper.
Yeah. So I think let's see the demo.
That paperless aspect is what E-KYC is really solving, and it's not about data sharing more.
Great, great. So I know Sunil has been patiently listening. We've been talking about the core Aadhaar piece. But Sunil, you run one of the largest retail payments network in the country, and payments is just the start. You do offer several other services, and you've been working with UIDAI and NPCI for several years. So specifically around E-KYC, for example, how do you see it panning out? And I know you're going to show us a demo of it for people to understand. Would love to hear your thoughts and why you sort of jumped on it very early.
Yeah, I think the 4 gentlemen here are technologists, and they build technology.
Sunil only knows one word, dhanda.
I only know how to use the technology. So I think there is also debate going on EMV or Aadhaar and all that. So I think the other day we have devised a new term, which is called Varma. Do you have Varma? Varma actually is VARMA, which is Visa, American Express, MasterCard. What is that?
Rupee and Aadhaar.
So your terminal has to be Varma certified. It's no longer EMV. And that's coming because I'm from North. I mean, originally from Maharashtra, but just from North, Varma ji is very famous. So you have to have Varma.
It's a coincidence we have a Varma on our panel also, by the way.
And we have a VARMA. Yeah. We don't have a VERMA. So I think, so we have to be Varma.
I just renamed myself.
So our fundamental core competence is usage of technology that this all is built in, including the NPCI, which is the latest one. And our challenge was that whether you use banking, whether you use telecom connection, whether you use prepaid connection or prepaid card, the logistic of 100,000 outlets carrying paperwork and original scene verified, attested, etc., all that needs to come. And that was one of the fundamental reason why the, you have so many telecom connection issued with the same paper, so many PAN card issued with the same identity. So the E-KYC has brought in that radical change where today, instantly, using the same E-KYC, and I think it is fresh rolled out of bakery on Friday only, that the prepaid instrument also will have E-KYC. It was earlier the bank account, now prepaid instrument, already mutual funds are taken care of by the SEBI, and now DOT and, which is the last one? IRDA. Are the only two ones which are remaining. So one of the fundamental pain point of the consumer is that when he walks into an outlet and wants to get things done, he is being told that sign this paper and bring your original, and we will then let you know after 7 to 15 days. That is the biggest deterrent, which is going to change. The Varma will change that, and that will make sure that it will be instant account opening, instant prepaid account opening.
Great. I think that's a good